Good evening, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham, joined per usual by my illustrious co-host, Jeremy Greco, and we are pleased to be joined today by the one and only Matthew LaMar. Matthew, guess first. How are we doing on this Sunday?
Doing pretty good. Certainly doing better Royals baseball wise than it has been for weeks.
Yeah,
Hope is a dangerous drug.
That it is. That it is. And my brother and sister can attest to this. Watching that ninth inning had me screaming into a pillow in my living room as a grown man. I was very frustrated. But Jeremy, you were watching the game with your dad. So who was more frustrated at that ninth inning, you or him?
Well, I think it was probably him. I gave up on this team last week, 2 weeks ago.
I think last week.
Time kind of runs together, so I was like, "If they lose, they lose." You and I have had the discussion, Jacob, of you asked me at one point, "Would I lock in 72 wins?" And I said, "Absolutely not." That would be kind of the worst case scenario of, like, almost mediocre. You're less likely to get a good draft pick, but also you're not anywhere close to competing for the playoffs. So, if they're gonna win, I would like them to just go ahead and keep winning and get back in the hunt here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to talk about the Royals wrapping up this 10-game road trip with another series victory, this time against the Minnesota Twins. We're going to be looking a little bit at what Matthew's got coming out for the website later on. Plus, we got a slew of injury updates and a trade rumor for once. But before we get too deep into it, make sure that you go and check out royalsreview.com. You got the rumblings there every single morning. Matthew's work, Jeremy's work, and the whole team's great work is up there for you to comment on and read through. And it's only at royalsreview.com. All righty, Jeremy. So,
Alrighty, Jacob.
Minnesota Twins series in the books. It looked shaky there on Sunday afternoon, but now the Royals, they come back home. They have a 5-5 road trip. They are now 6-6-1 in their last 13 series after starting off just terrible in that department earlier on the season. They were 1-6-1 to start off the season. And the Royals have not had a great record at Target Field, but they looked pretty strong for the most part against the Minnesota Twins. What are your thoughts coming away from this series victory?
Well, you know that I like to look at things in terms of road trips and homestands. I think that you gotta kind of take it out to at least that level to try and pull anything meaningful from it. So this is a 5-5 road trip. And I like what that stat you just brought up of 6-1 on their last 13 series, because I think both things tell you the same story of, hey, 6-1 in 13 series isn't a bad outcome. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's not going to sink your season. And by the same token, a 5-5 road trip is actually pretty good. It's hard to go 500 on the road a lot of times, depending on who you're facing. Now, the Royals, I said before the road trip started, the Rangers, Reds, and Twins are not exactly the cream of the crop. So you probably the 5-5 is fine again, not good. And and the thing is that I don't know if you just said it now, but you said beforehand that they started the year with a 1-6 in their series. And that's kind of what I'm looking at is, yeah, 6-1, fine. 5-5 in the last 10 games, fine. But you need to do better than fine if you're gonna pull out of this nosedive you put yourself in. Now, I guess you could argue they've leveled off, and you gotta level off before you can go up, but they gotta start ascending in a hurry or they're still gonna crash into the nearby mountain range.
Matthew, what say you, friend?
Well, so if you think about it this way, if the Royals play 500 ball the rest of the year, they'll end up at a 74 and 88 record. And considering what they put themselves into in the first couple of months of the season, could be worse, right? Avoiding 90 losses. So based off of the wins slash losses already banked, I think it's reasonable for the Royals to go 500 for the rest of the year. I think that they've played poorly, but I think if you their true talent level is above what they've played certainly so far. And yeah, last year wasn't the best year, but they ended up with a winning record. I mean, this is mostly the same team, so I don't think it's unreasonable to say look, they can play 500 the rest of the year. If they do so, they'll end up with 74 wins. And that sort of feels like what it should. If you think of that, this team was a low 80s team that underperformed, a low 80s win team, that underperformed. If like that's, what you look at it as, which is really, I think what they are. At the beginning of the year, I predicted 84 wins. I was like, I do not see a 90 win team this year, and I don't see a playoff team. And that was maybe a little bit optimistic, but the rest of the Royals review group was on the copium for sure. Everyone else was like 90 wins in the Central, which I get it, but I think realistically, this was a low 80s win team that is underperformed, and if they play 500 the rest of the year, they'll get to 74 wins. They could do better than that. They could do worse than that. I don't think anybody would be surprised if they hit 90 plus losses. If they made some sort of cheeky run at 500 on the year overall, I think that would be similar to last year, right? So that's sort of my perspective on where we're thinking about in terms of playing 500 for short stretches. Like, this is definitely doable for the rest of the year if the Royals keep splitting series, winning, losing. That's it seems to be, I think, one of the likelier courses for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy, did you have something to say in response to that?
I've been thinking it's kind of tangential, not exactly related to that. If you have more you want to say there before I try and push us in a different direction. So tangentially, I just, this thought has been stuck in my head since before we even started recording, that I really wanted to ask you guys, what would the Royals have to do to get you to believe that they could be a playoff team this year? Like, would going 6-0 on the homestand against the Rangers and Astros, would that get you to believe it? Or do they have to go even further? I was curious, both of your thoughts on that.
So, Matt, if I could take this first real quick, man. So one other fact that I it's June 7th when we're recording this, right? I can't believe that this is the truth, but this is the first time the Royals have won back-to-back series this entire season. Like, I need more of that consistency on a series by series basis, I think. And truth be told, you could be consistent in a series by series, right? They could play 500 ball the rest of the way and look like a competent club at least, but that's still going to land them 12 games below 500 once game 162 is in the books. So I think on top of series by series being competitive and winning more, stringing this momentum, you would need another 2025 run. Remember when they won 16 games and 18 games, I think it was? I need another one of those because that is going to erase this deficit that they have created for themselves and at least get them back above 500 ever so slightly. But I don't foresee those two things happening in tandem. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, I think however they do it, I think you start to believe or think that it's realistic if the Royals get within striking distance of 500 with a reasonable amount of time left. Whether they do that with, over the next 2 weeks, if that's something that they slowly chip away at in, 2 months from now, it's August 7th, they're sitting at 3 or 4 games under 500, then you can really get hot in a short period of time and, take take it there. I think that's the key for me is that the Royals are 12 games under 500, right? If they win, 3 of their next 4, great. Then they'll be 30 and 40, they'll be 10 games under 500. Like, they need to get to, I think, probably about 4 or 5 games under 500 for anybody to really be like, okay, yeah, this is a team that's within sort of striking distance.
I was
If they hit,
thinking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
the only thing I was going to say is if they hit 500, you best be believing I'm spamming that B500, image
I
multiple
love that one.
times. Yeah.
I do.
Matt Money Smith here from Believe in Chargers, and I am reaching out to you, the small business owners, to talk to you about my friends at Gusto, because they can help you out. You want to have your hands in everything. It's your business. It's got your name on it. I get it. But how about running that business a little bit tighter and cutting some of the stuff that maybe you don't want to use your valuable time on, and that is payroll. HR. Let Gusto help you get your time back because every hour counts. So what is Gusto? It's an online payroll and benefits software that's built for small businesses. It is all in one. It is remote friendly. It is incredibly easy to use, and you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. What does that give you? Saves time. You got built-in automated tools. You got offer letters, onboarding docs, direct deposits, so much more, not to mention direct access to certified HR experts. They are going to help support you through any tough HR situation. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/believe. That's GUSTO.com/believe, BLEAV. And you're going to get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. Again, that is 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/believe. Again, one more time, gusto.com/believe.
My thought goes, I want to see them be within striking distance of 500, probably by the All-Star break. I think it is what I'd like to see to believe in them again. So that gives them about a month to try and make up, like you said, they're 12 under, to make up at least 8 games. So they'd have to win 8 more than they lose over the next month, which is a pretty big ask. I think that's the thing, that when you look at the wild card standings, you're like, well, they're 5.5 back in the wild card, and they're 9.5 back in the division. And those aren't numbers that are impossible to overcome by the end of the season when they're not even halfway done. But then you think, but they're so far under 500, and one of the things that people like to talk about as you get close to the end of the year, Seren Petra loved to talk about last year. Yeah, they're only 3.5 back of the wild card in September, but there's 6 teams between them in the playoffs. It's not just the number of games you have to win, it's the number of teams you have to win those games more than. And it's basically the entire American League. And the American League is bad, but can the entire American League be that bad for the rest of the year? That feels like a big ask. So you've got to have a sustained streak of winning a lot of games, and going 6-0 on this homestand, it would feel great. You'd suddenly be only 6 games back of 500 at that point, but can you sustain it? And that's the thing we haven't seen from the Royals, as Jacob pointed out, the back-to-back series wins. This is the first time they've done it all season. We need to see some sustained success before I'm going to be able to buy back into this team, I think.
Yeah.
I wrote, I don't know, this was, I forget when it was. Let me take a look at when, like, their long losing streak. I think it was probably around, I don't know, April 20th, roughly, right? When they had just lost 7 in a row or whatever it was. I wrote and published an article that was like, the Royals have probably already played themselves out of a playoff spot for 2 reasons. One was, for them to get to about the 87 win, total that you thought that, based off of past wildcard, third wildcard history, like, that is probably what, at that point, what they needed to hit. Now you could argue that getting to 83 might do it, and that is a huge lift, right? But I wrote that article there because it was like, well, good teams don't lose this hard this early. Bad teams do that. And so not only is it like you're putting yourself in a position to have to come from behind, but you are showing that you are a bad team by doing that, and good teams don't do that. And so I was in, like, by the end of April, I'm like, this team doesn't have it. This team is not a playoff team. And some people got, they were mad. And then, like, shortly thereafter, the Royals went on a little bit of a run where they won, like, 5 of their next 6 games. And it was like, oh, well, is this, like, the same, what do you think? And then, they shortly in the middle of May, lost, 6 games again, and then another 6 games.
I was certainly ready to laugh at you when the Royals got to within half a game of the division lead. I was like, they're right. But that goes back to the sustaining, because they didn't sustain the winning, and then they kind of collapsed after that too. And that goes back to what you're saying of, good teams don't do this. Well, now they've done it twice, and the losing streaks are longer than the one winning streak.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at this optimistically, right? What are some of the things that the Royals can hopefully marry up across the 3 units of baseball, right? Hitting, starting pitching, relief pitching. So here's some things that haven't changed. Royals are still the American league leader, with 33 quality starts as a team. You know, that's behind the Dodgers by a good bit. But the Royals have one of the worst losing records, or one of the worst records, when their starter posts a quality start. They're now 18-15 in that span. Those losses are 3 more than any other team in the league, and that's just crazy to me. But also on the flip side, the Royals have been playing close baseball lately, right? Each of the last Royals 5 games have been decided by 3 runs or fewer, and you could add on another one after today's little meltdown there by Beck Way, unfortunately.
It shouldn't be adding another one today. That's not a good thing to add another one today.
No, it's not. It's not. And you know what? That is, he's gonna get his lumps. He's a brand new reliever. He's gonna get his lumps. It just sucks that it came in that situation.
I feel like I have to take the blame for this one because from the moment Noah Cameron finished the 5th inning, I was saying both to myself, to my dad, and online using the Royals Review Blue Sky account, I hope Beck Way gets into this one. I want to see what he can do with a lead after seeing what he did in a game where the Royals were losing. I would like to see what he does. You know, it's not a save situation. At that point, they had a 4-run lead. So let's get him in there and let's see what he could do. And they got him in there, and we saw what he could do. Well, most of my internet went out at that point, for good or for worse. But yeah,
Did you punch the router? Is that what caused?
no,
Was this
there's
a
storms
physical
going through the area.
storms? Right, rolling thunder there of rage. Jeremy Greco, everyone. Matthew, anything on Beck Way there? Now we've got 2 outings from him, one very good and one very, very bad.
You mentioned the, sort of the route to the Royals being good. I think the the formula goes something like this. The Royals don't have the worst offense in baseball because, maybe that's bad offense, below average, but through some combination of Vinny and Salvi, regressing more to their means, as well as the development of Jensen and Caglianone. And, I think Isaac Collins is, been underperforming a little bit from what I expected, right? Like there's players and even Bobby, right? Like the yearly Bobby Witt nuclear, event hasn't happened. So I think you can sort of expect also Michael Garcia, at the beginning of the year, I noted he was like probably one of the guys that I would expect the most to regress, but he's got some room in it to sort of bounce back, right? So I think that you can reasonably expect that the Royals' offense is going to be better, perhaps significantly better. Additionally, I think there's reason to expect the bullpen not to be the worst bullpen in baseball.
Are you sure?
Things happen. Weird things happen with bullpens, right? It's small sample sizes. Like Lucas Erceg has never been a 6 ERA pitcher before. Like weird things happen. If Carlos Estevez comes back, Estevez
Big if.
is not like peak Aroldis Chapman or anything, but Estevez even last year was a serviceable, bullpen arm, and I think that is it would be a benefit. He would make the team better for sure. So I think that just through some bullpen, just baseball god stuff, like they're probably not going to be the worst bullpen moving forward. They'll probably get some bounces their way, right? And then the starting pitching, probably similar-ish. Cole Reagans and Chris Bubich will be back, and those 2 are very good pitchers. So, that will balance out some regression elsewhere. So overall, I think that you can expect the team to play better moving forward, and that's how you get to the Royals not losing 100 games like they were on pace for. The question is, how much improvement will there be? And I think I would expect the bullpen probably to improve the most. I know this is weird, but again, small sample sizes.
It's the worst. It's got the most room to improve.
They have the furthest to go back to, even merely being bad. And I probably, while I do think there is probably the most room in the offense to improve, I don't trust Royals coaching. I just don't. And
with reason.
Specifically on the hitting side, they've done, well with a bunch of starting pitchers. And, Luinder Avila, his looks pretty good, so the Stephen Kolek has come out of sort of nowhere. I mean, he was good last year too, but like they keep finding sort of like Cleveland Guardians, like they just keep finding dudes who can start. And that's so delightful to see. Just like, well, just here's another guy who can just start and get outs. You know, how many years have we watched just random people in,
Man.
Still doing it.
Yeah.
Who was
yeah,
Parker Messick? Where did he come from?
Hey, he's doing it though, damn
Tony
it.
Cantillo, where did he come from?
He's doing the damn thing. I will say that. Hey, one thing I didn't want to touch on with the bullpen real quick, because, Lucas Urseg's performance has just left a sour taste in plenty of folks' mouths. Heading into today, he was 0-3 in save opportunities and allowed 9 runs in the last 3 innings that he had pitched heading into today. Like, that's terrible. That's awful. But as a unit, since they blew that lead against the Rangers. You remember that, Jeremy? It was like a 6-4 lead. They had a 2.08 ERA in 7 games. And that's, of course, this is all before today. And 2 of those 5 earned runs came in 1 game. Like, they had been doing their part at least. And man, is it crazy to think that this is the whole adage about 30% of the time you get good, 30% of the time you get bad, and 30% of the time you get something in between. It feels like that with the bullpen just as a unit right now.
Yeah. I think you asked between the 3 units, how could the Royals get better? And I think the bullpen has to improve because as you noted, the rotation's been pretty good. I think the lineup has at least shown flashes where, guys have really struggled at times, but, Isaac Collins will get a couple hits and be like, maybe he's coming back. Maikel Garcia, if he could get healthy. There's a lot of issues, and we haven't talked about the injury stuff from the weekend yet, but a lot of scary stuff with the lineup happening with injuries right now. But I wonder if the solution to the Royals bullpen issues is the rotation, and it's the currently on the injured list. So my thought process goes like this. Cole Reagans, Chris Bubich, both on the injured list. We got an update today from Joel Goldberg. I'll just drop this in here and we'll circle back to the other injuries later. He says they're both pitching bullpen side sessions, hopefully going to go on rehab assignments soon. Both probably need a couple rehab starts before they come back. When they come back, the big question is always, well, who comes out of the rotation? Obviously, I think Luinder Avila's looked fine, but we're better off with him in the bullpen than in the rotation. I think we can all agree that that's true. Even the Royals, I think, should be able to agree that that's true. And for this year, he's shown enough that I'm willing to say, maybe he can start someday in the future. I don't think he's there yet. A lot of walks. K-BB percentage is very low. Don't like it. Want him back in the bullpen. But then who else comes out of the rotation? It's not Noah Cameron anymore.
No.
I don't think it's Stephen Kolek. It's certainly not Michael Wacha. Seth Lugo, is he better in the bullpen than he is in the rotation? And you got to pitch him. So my answer is, and you could, people have said, well, maybe you move Bubich or Reagans to the bullpen. My answer is 6-starter rotation. Everyone's been saying 6-man rotation. I'm finally on board. Let's go with the 6-man rotation. Cole Reagans, Chris Bubich, Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Cameron, and Kolek. Because I wonder if a 6-man rotation, that's what the Dodgers are doing to try and keep their starters healthy. It's working. Their guys are staying healthy. Well, some of them are staying healthy. Blake Snell can't stay healthy to save his life. I don't know what to tell you about that. But it's working in Los Angeles, and I think it could work in Kansas City now. I think that you've got some relievers. Daniel Lynch has rebounded from a little bit of a rough stretch, I think, to where I still trust him. Langxiety, that's my nickname, Alex Langxiety. I like him doing all right.
All right, Jeremy. Brother, that man is a sub-1 ERA since a month ago. He's been stellar.
The K-BB scares me over there too. We've got to come up with an easier to say and type term for K-BB percentage, given like how important that stat is for how good a pitcher is. There needs to be an easier way to talk about it.
K-Bib. It's called K-Bib.
All right.
K-Bib.
K-Bib. His K-Bib is not good enough for me to be like, yeah, Alex Langxiety, everything's fine. And we got lights out Lucas, obviously still a concern, though he looked really good in middle relief last night. there's enough juice in that bullpen where Mason Black needs more. We need more from Mason Black. Get him in the game more often. He's looked good. He's looked good.
Yes.
Let's give him some more leverage innings. I want to see Beck Way more before I'm willing to completely give up on him after today, though. Again, only in big leads and while you're already behind for a while. Thank you. I think the 6-man rotation is the way to go because you can't afford. The thing is, you could put Ragans or Bubic in the bullpen, and I think they'd succeed, but you can't afford to do that. If the team isn't going to be good, you need to be able to trade Bubic, as we're going to talk about shortly, I think. And he trades as a starter, not as a reliever. So we need to be able to, he needs to be pitching out of the rotation. Ragans has got too much time left on his contract. You still think he's got ace stuff to put him in the bullpen now. So you could put him in the bullpen if you were like, man, the bullpen needs that one more arm and we're really close. You're not close enough. He needs to be starting too. So I think 6-man rotation and try and take pressure off of the team by having more starters on the team, by saying fewer relievers, more starting pitchers. That's how we fix the pitching staff, where the starters are look good and the relievers are not.
Matthew, what you got, man?
You make a good point about, the Bubic in the trade market. I think how they play in the next 2 weeks really could impact what they do, right? If they go on a tear right now, and as we've talked about earlier, if they put themselves 4 games out of 500, you've got a couple of pitchers coming back. Like, you can, think to yourself, all right, maybe we can, in a weak AL, make a move here. But if they don't, then they're going to have to, just do what you're saying is, Chris Bubic as a trade chip. I think I understand the sort of idea of the 6-man rotation, but I don't think that it gets to the core of the issue, which is that the Royals need better bullpen arms, and having 6 people in the rotation doesn't help that, right? Like, it doesn't help them go deeper, really. It just keeps them healthier. But the problem is not that the Royals have, exactly 4 guys who could start. Like, they've got 7 guys that you can be like, all right, they can start games, and I feel good about that. That's pretty rare. And I also think, like, Chris Bubic's free agency is going to be really fascinating because I don't think he is cut out to be a starter long term. I think he could be an absolute killer closer for a long time. And the Royals, if they really think that they can do well, is they need to have Bubic be basically multi-inning closer and just try to shorten games as much as possible, right? Try to emulate that 2014, 2015 squad while using good starting pitching and, having Chris Bubic as a 2-inning closer every, more often. Like, I think that is a really interesting idea. Cole Ragans, I think that's, I don't know. He's the classic starter type, so you got to put him in. But, imagine you have a world where you can get 4 innings out of Steven Kolek and Chris Bubic. Like, how cool would that be in a 1-0 lead in the late innings? So that's sort of how I feel about that. Like, I don't hate the 6-man rotation, but especially with the injury issues that the Royals have had. But I don't know. Like, they need more bullpen arms. Chris Bubic is a crazy good bullpen arm. That makes sense, but it's predicated on the Royals being in a position where that makes sense for them. I think that Bubic would be okay with helping out the team however he can. He's the type of guy who's like that. So, certainly not our friend Bailey Falter, who not so much.
No,
Jeez,
no, not at all.
He's still in the organization. I thought he was gone for sure.
I thought he was too. After what he said and just how that was all handled, I thought he would be let go completely. Hey, Jeremy, I know you got something to say on the bullpen, but there are 2 things that I want to point out. And number one, as of this recording, the Royals starting rotation ranks 4th in the league when it comes to innings pitched at 357 2/3. Just for reference, the last place Washington Nationals rotation as 279 1/3 innings pitched. So that's a pretty big difference right there. And also, we're here talking about the 6-man rotation, right? It's something that we've seen in spurts around the league. We haven't seen a team go into the season and say, hey, we're going to commit to a 6-man rotation that breaks down to about 27 starts per starter if they all remain healthy. But we have gotten a little bit of a glimpse at it thanks to the Seattle Mariners, who started off this month with a proper 6-man rotation. And what do you know? It's looking pretty dang good right now. In that span, they're leading the league in KBIB, and they're also leading the league in Sierra. That's a very talented group, right? Like that's just an otherworldly talented
Castillo
pitching.
Part of the rotation?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So they were piggybacking him for a minute. He wasn't doing well, but to hear that they went to this, go on.
No. It's they just went to a proper 6-man rotation for the starters that has worked out very well. And hold on, I'm pulling up their innings pitched because that does matter in this span. And in that span, though, they rank 11th with 32 2/3. That's 10 less innings than the league leading Los Angeles Dodgers in that span. So, Jeremy, did you have something else to say on the bullpen, man, or the 6-man rotation?
I'm kind of making this up as I go along.
Okay.
Which I never do.
Never.
I certainly don't have lots of training in improv and a brain that just refuses to sit on one point. But I keep going back to, I'm still thinking the 6-man rotation idea. I still like it a lot because, first of all, I get what Matt's saying about Chris Bubic makes a lot of sense in the bullpen, but Matt even agrees with me that he has more trade value as a starter, and so you don't want to put him in the bullpen unless you already think you're back in the hunt. The guy who would make sense to try and move to the bullpen from the rotation is Kolek, but he's much better as a starter than as a reliever, like just because of the way he does things. I think my thought process goes like this. You do the 6-man rotation, maybe you feel more comfortable sending your starter out for an extra inning. Maybe he's got a little bit more juice for that extra inning because he's got the extra day off, and that lessens the pressure on the bullpen. You have to use one fewer reliever. You have to put one less bullet in your Russian roulette chamber as you're going. So that I think I really feel like the 6-man rotation is going to be at least the short-term solution. I think after you get to a certain point, the 6-man rotation is not a thing that you're going to do for the whole year. You're either going to get to the point where you go, well, it wasn't enough. We're still not in the hunt. We got to trade some guys. You trade Bubic, probably try and trade Waka. If you could get a good deal for Waka, I think you got to do it. And I think you could probably get a good deal for him. And then, well, you don't have 6 starters anymore. You got 5 and Luinder Avila's back in the rotation, right?
Yeah.
And if you get yourself all the way back in the playoff hunt, then you could say, listen, Chris, we got to put you in the bullpen. We're going to go back to the 5-man rotation. You're going to be the closer, and you're going to fix our bullpen issues. And then you've got an all lefty bullpen, which is back into the bullpen with Lynch, Strom, and Bubic. But sassy lefties, as they like to say on MLB The Show.
Sassy lefties. The sassy lefties.
Get it done. So that I think I'm not advocating for a full season of 6-man rotation. I'm just saying, just kind of to with the assets that you have, I think that's the thing that makes the most sense. But of course, in 2 weeks, when Bubic and Reagans are hopefully getting ready to return, who knows how things will look.
Yeah. Hey, but before we move on to the Chris Bubic talk, Matt, anything to add on your end?
No, I think that it's worth talking about some of the injuries that have happened on the hitting side, because that could, impact all of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and run down some of those things. First and foremost, I'm sure a lot of Royals fans out there got nervous when they saw Maikel Garcia shift over to shortstop in today's series finale against the Minnesota Twins, and Bobby Witt Jr. exiting the game prematurely. But we did get an update on that from MLB.com's Annie Rogers, who reported that Bobby Witt Jr.'s knee soreness was something that progressed throughout the game. So this was this something that was nagging him beforehand? It certainly sounds like it. Apparently, Witt said he was hoping to get the off day get to the off day tomorrow to let it rest, but that ache just never went away. He is going to be evaluated tomorrow and on Tuesday when the Royals return home for 3 games against the Texas Rangers. Guys, this is bumps and bruises happen in a baseball season. They do. We all know this. But holy smokes, if the Royals miss Bobby Witt Jr. for any extended period of time, like, I mean, you see how Yankees fans have reacted to losing Aaron Judge. Like, it's never easy to lose an MVP level player for any amount of time. But Jeremy, I want to start off with you here. Scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about this Bobby Witt Jr. injury development?
I think you could comfortably put me at 11, maybe 12. I mean, because it's not just Bobby either, right? Bobby's what makes the offense go, period. But they've also, Maikel Garcia shifted over to shortstop. He missed several games with the hamstring injury from last weekend. He's been playing through a wrist or forearm injury to begin with. And then Salvi and Jac haven't played the last 2 games. Well, Jac started yesterday, but he didn't make it very far into the game. That's 44% of the lineup is currently injured. And I've poo-pooed the idea that injuries are what derailed the Royals last year. But when 44% of your lineup is out, and it's kind of the top 44% of your lineup, like, you can say what you want about Salvi and Jac, and you'd probably be right, but Jac was getting hot before he got hurt. Salvi the team doesn't win when Salvi doesn't hit. It's bad out here. It's bad.
Yeah. Matt, what about you, man? Scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about Bobby Witt Jr. right now?
I mean, 3, not particularly worried. The
Okay.
thing is, like, there's 2 reasons for that. One, the main reason is the Royals are terrible. If they're gonna lose Bobby to any extended period of time, it might as well be when they're already bad. Like, not that you can just sort of, like, pluck an injury and then, like, plop it into a different season. Like, that's not something you can do. But just, like, if it's gonna happen, then you just, like, choo-choo, full tank, the rest of the season. That's a totally different vibe, and, I'm used to that vibe. I don't mind it sometimes.
Aren't we all used to it?
But, the other thing is, like, Bobby misses a couple games a year. He played in 157 games last year. His rookie season he played 150. He missed a little bit of time. So he's been pretty reliable, but, like, it's it's okay if he misses a couple games here or there. I think the bigger issue is that the Royals don't have any depth on the position player side. That's the problem. The problem is not that you have these injuries here and there, because baseball is a very physical sport, and they're out doing the best that they can, and you tweak something or whatever, and it maybe doesn't show up in the injury report. Like, that happens for, like, every player. Every player is playing through something to some degree. The trick is with Witt, and with some of the other players, Garcia, like, they don't have anybody to replace them. And it stinks that India is out also, which triggers a cascade effect where they
Yeah.
need to play both Massey and Lofton at the same time. And then, so the problem is just the lack of position player talent. That is the real issue to the team. And this is what happens when you bomb 4 drafts in a row, is when you need that extra talent's not there. And that's sort of the real issue with the team, is I think that, like, overall the team has done an excellent job at finding pitchers on bargains or deals, and being able to coach pitchers up, have them be the best version of themselves. I think we've seen that with Chris Bubich. The Cole Reagans trade was great to get a pitcher like Reagans, for half a season of Aroldis Chapman, right? They've done a lot of really good work, and I think the front office has generally done a very good job in acquiring players without giving up much in return, tying up the payroll with a lot of high priced free agents. A lot of free agents that they've avoided have been bad, right? Like, I think they've generally been pretty good about that, and sort of scrounging around to improve the club. But the problem is that if you do that, you've got to be producing talent internally. They have not done so, and I worry that their hitting development up and down the organization just isn't there. And to what extent Zumwalt is involved in organizational hitting development. But it's true, like, Gavin Cross is stalled out. Like, they got Sean Gamble's been awful this year, right out of the gate. And it's obviously, you have the Mazzucato and the Lacey, but the Mazzucato pick was not great, but like Blake
No.
Mitchell, right? You know, like could he picked Kyle Teal? He was right there. Instead, you were like, we can, do a better job with a highly, a high risk sort of profile. And lo and behold, Mitchell's still in, A ball, and Kyle Teal's, made the big leagues. So like they've just made a lot of bad decisions and haven't developed anybody on the position player side of things. And some of that's not JJ's fault, because it was, under Moore and that sort of apparatus. But like, you know, JJ was there too. And I think that this is just more sort of fuel. I think that like the Royals really should have moved on from Zumwalt last year. They really, really should have moved on from Zumwalt, if only because that, it's not working. Let's try something else. And they haven't done that. So like that's not to get us too far away from the injury side of things, but like that's the core reason why all of these injuries hurt. There's no one in AAA. There's no one in AA. There's no one to step in. And it's not that like a couple of people got injured. Obviously, Bobby Witt getting injured is really bad long term if that's, if that's that, what happens, if it's not just a couple of days. But like they just don't have any depth. Pitchers have gotten hurt. Other pitchers have stepped in. Hitters, when all healthy, weren't good, and now that they're hurt, there's still no one to step in. That's so that's really my frustration is there's no organizational hitting depth, and therefore every injury is magnified.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But Starling Marte stepped in and hit a 3-run home run today. So everything's fine now, right?
Everything's fine. Maybe you should be playing every day. I don't know.
Sean
Maybe.
Sean Gamble also, I gotta push back. I know that this has nothing to do with anything. He's got a 96 WRC plus in his last 18 games. That's only bad, not horrible.
Dang, yikes. Well, back to the injury updates. Let's make everyone a little bit more down. A man the fans were clamoring to see out of the lineup for a long time is now out of the lineup for a reason. Catcher Salvador Perez is dealing with a cracked thumbnail on his right hand that has led to swelling, making it hard to grip the bat and throw. He was out of the lineup on the 6th and the 7th, but reportedly the team is hopeful he'll improve in coming days. I'm not too terribly worried about this right now, unfortunately. Salvi's been dealing with numerous things that he has played through. And right now, it finally seems like he has gotten to a point like, I physically cannot do this right now. I need to stop. And so hopefully those other things come along. Outfielder Jac Caglianone is dealing with some right shoulder soreness. He was not in the lineup on the 7th after he crashed into the right field wall on June 5th. He remained in the game that day and was in the lineup the next day, but then he exited early on the 6th after favoring his shoulder during the swings. And that is all I have for injury updates as of late. So, Perez, Caglianone, neither one of them are, I don't know what the word is. Neither one of them are consensus bastions of the Royals lineup right now. Like, both of them have their moments. Both of them have flaws. Jeremy, but they still usually help out the lineup more often than not. So are you worried about either one of these guys with the missing extended time?
I'm more worried about Caglianone than Perez for obvious reasons. Caglianone was a league average hitter for the season. Like I said, he'd been getting kind of hot since I don't know, since the road trip started, I guess. Maybe, let's see. Yeah, 168 WRC plus on the road trip before he had the strikeout yesterday. Pretty good. Had a home run, 10 hits, 1 double, 1 home run. 345, 457, 43. It's hard. The ISO is still very low compared to what you want from Jac, but he wasn't striking out that much. 25.7 is not great, but he was walking a lot. He was getting his hits.
Yeah.
I was hoping the power was going to start showing up. I mean, that double he hit against the Twins Friday night, that was mashed. That's a home run in most stadiums, 18 out of 30. So, then what I'm mostly worried about is, okay, maybe Jac only misses a couple of days, but does he lose all the heat he had built up? When you get the 3 goals in a row in NBA Jam and you're on fire and everything's easier, and then you miss one, now you lose all your bonuses. Did he just lose all his bonuses?
I hope not. Matt, what say you, man?
This is probably a really hot take if you're a traditional Royals fan. The Royals are better with Salvi out of the lineup than with him in
Yeah.
the lineup. He has a 254 OBP. 254. That's unplayable. That's unplayable. And he had a 286 a 284 OBP last year. That was borderline unplayable. You can't have somebody with a 254 OBP who also is really slow and doesn't create, like you can't have that in your lineup. Now, that's not, again, all of the caveats apply here. Salvador Perez is a legend. Salvador Perez is a great team, voice in the
He's a
clubhouse.
surefire Hall of Famer.
So, sure, whatever. That's a debate I'm not getting into right now. But like 254 OBP, you can't be a cleanup hitter with that. You can't do it. And maybe he has been dealing with other things.
Yeah.
And frankly, like, it's stunning that he hasn't had more of these little instances here or there across his career with how often he gets hit by foul balls. Like this type of injury, I feel like, is something that he should have had like 17 times a year, every year for the last decade and a half. But, it's so, like, the Royals are better with Salvador Perez out of the lineup. I think, you could argue that the pitching might suffer because Salvi's catcher ERA is way lower than Carter Jensen's. There is that aspect to it.
Yeah.
But,
Noah Cameron didn't seem to have a problem.
No, sure didn't. And I do want to go back and look at the month of May specifically on that, because I want to say they really protected Carter Jensen against catching games when he came up in 2025. So I feel like the opening month of 2026 was the first time he got a regular shake at catching games. And I want to see how he responded in May. One more point on Salvi, Matt. So since Salvi hit his last home run all the way back on May 25th, he's gone 5 for 35, which is a 143 batting average with 1 extra base hit and 1 RBI in those 9 games that he has played. Meanwhile, Jac Caglianone, in the last 9 games that he has played, he has a 160 WRC plus, a 444 OBP, and is walking, get this, 13.9. That dates back to May 29th. So that is, you talk about those bonuses, Jeremy. Well, he was racking up a good amount of them.
Yeah, he and Vinny both, I thought, over this road trip at the very least, have taken much better at bats. I've seen them not swinging at nearly as many awful pitches as they were before. Fortunately, Vinny doesn't appear hurt yet, knock on wood, or whatever my desk is made out of. But man, they need guys to step up. Michael Massey had a terrific road trip. Did not have a good day yesterday, and with Massey, you always wonder, is this the mirage when he's hot, or is this the new Massey? He was so good in 2024, and that was a big part of the reason the Royals were a playoff team. And by so good, I mean he was a league average hitter with good defense. And David Lesky had a newsletter this week pointing out that since he returned from injury last year, he's had that 104 WRC plus again, when you take into account the hot last year and then what he's been this year. But if the thing is that when a guy doesn't take walks, he's going to be really streaky. So if Massey's about to go into a cold streak, they're going to need their guys to come back in, and that's where Carter Jensen having a couple hits the last couple of days. Vinny Pasquantino hopefully finally turning back into Vinny. You need Jac Caglianone back. You need Bobby Witt back. And yeah, you need Salvador Perez out of the lineup. I wanted to really quick point out about Salvador Perez. Not only is that 254 OBP unplayable, but he's got a 345 slug because he's only got a 140 ISO. That's the lowest his ISO has been since 2014.
Goodness.
That's back when he was a contact hitter. And everyone went, is he ever going to have any power? You can't do that. You got to have something. You got to offer something in the line. If you can't walk, you got to hit for, got to show up with the dingers. He's not even showing up with the dingers right now.
No, he is not. Matt, anything else?
We said early on, bat him 8th. Let him, occasionally you hit the slot jackpot and he hits the home run for you in the 8th spot. You can't even bat him 8th like that.
Matt, anything else to add?
I mean, I wonder if we see Cameron Meisner, who's been really hot recently for the Storm Chasers.
Yeah.
At some point.
I'm dying to see him. His tools, I was so excited when the Royals got him from the Rays. I love his tools so much. I know he hasn't put it together, and you wouldn't expect the Royals hitting coaching to help him put it together, but I want to see it.
It'd be
I
fun.
want to see if it's legit. That's all I'm waiting on. We've seen too many toolsy outfielders succeed in Omaha, and it just does not translate at all to the major league level. All right, guys, we would be remiss if we did not talk about the trade rumor from this weekend, courtesy of everyone's favorite MLB insider out there, Bob Nightingale of USA Today. So he had a report that the A's are looking to upgrade their rotation and are reportedly interested in Royals starter Kris Bubic. But he also added a caveat there that the Royals are not looking to punt on the season just yet and are not ready to sell.
Raise your
Now,
hand if you're surprised.
I'm
This is not a visual medium. There are no hands raised.
yes, correct. If my reaction was not enough, none of us are raising our hands. Now, just to remind listeners out there, Bubic is still on the IL with left elbow soreness. Throughout this season so far, he has a 4.11 ERA and a 1.232 WHIP over 50 and 1/3 innings, striking out 51 batters with 26 walks in that span. Now, he hasn't been able to get back to that all-star form that we saw last year. However, he's still a very solid pitcher. And if you look at the upside there, the upside is there when he is healthy. So, Matt, I want to start off with you here. I like the pairing between the two clubs. I really, really do. And if you look at this team right now, I think that Kris Bubic is kind of the one trade chip that everyone can agree on that has the most value, even despite him being injured. What were your thoughts on this rumor, Matt?
I mean, of course, the Athletics are interested in Kris Bubic. He's like the quintessential trade deadline, acquisition. He's a good starting pitcher who can help you, and if can pitch out of the bullpen even in the playoffs. So I don't really have a lot to say other than of course, the Athletics are interested. Of course, other teams are interested in. The Royals really need to maximize a return if they end up trading Kris Bubic. But also, the trade deadline is August 3rd, which is hilarious to me. There's so much time left to go, and of course the Royals aren't being like, oh yeah, we're gonna totally sell. They don't want to come off as desperate, and also for all the reasons we've talked about, you get yourselves 5 games away, from 500, then you have a shot in the AL Central, not the AL Central specifically, but the American League. So, I don't know. Of course they're interested. Kris Bubic is good. Makes sense. He's a rental pitcher. I do wonder if the Royals are going to get. I feel like Royals fans would be a little disappointed in the return for Bubic or for anybody else, because especially if they trade him so late, because August 3rd, that's not that far away from the end of the season. That's like 2 months, less than 2 months, and no one's going to be giving up a huge top 100 prospect probably for a guy like.
Not Leo DeVries for Kris Bubic, because that's what I had penciled in.
Why not?
Jeremy, what do you think about this rumor, man?
I mean, Leo DeVries for Kris Bubic, who says no? But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The weakness of the Athletics has been their starting pitching. The Royals have some starting pitching to trade. I did. This is again kind of tangentially related, but a question that has sat on my mind for a while that I wanted to run by you two. That I have my own answer to it, but I'm curious if I'm just losing my mind or if you guys think there might be something to it. Cole Reagans and Kris Bubic have not pitched as well as we had hoped this year, and they've been hurt. And a lot of people have said, well, even when they come back, they haven't pitched as well as we hoped they would. Are they actually any good? And my thought process goes, what if they were pitching while they were hurt and then they went on the IL? Do you think that is likely to be the explanation, that if they come off the IL and they're actually healthy, that they'll pitch as well as we thought they could? Or am I just huffing the copium, as Matt would say?
I think it's possible. I don't know if it's probable, but I certainly think that's a strong possibility, right? We talked several times on this podcast about how baseball players admit to playing through different lumps and bumps and bruises, and those do pile up and they do matter. And once you get shut down for a couple of weeks, well, a lot of those things start recovering, a lot of those things start healing, and you don't accrue any new issues. So I think that they will pitch better once they knock the rust off, but I don't know if they're going to get back to that all-star form that we saw from Chris Bubic, especially. Matt, what about you?
I think maybe I do think in the case of Bubic, his expected numbers are better than his ERA, right? If you look at his FIP versus his ERA, he's striking out, just about the same as he did last year. A little bit more walks, although that's like I don't know, motto of the whole Royals season
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been okay. Cole Reagans has been like really weird. I don't know what to say about Cole Reagans, but like the answer is, maybe. I remember maybe a month ago, it was the first time that Jonathan India was in the clubhouse, the Kansas City clubhouse, after his season ending surgery. So he's in street clothes and he's got his arm in a sling. And it's the first time he's in the clubhouse, first time, because there was a road trip while that happened.
Hmm.
And he was talking about, his arm injury. And he mentioned a specific play, diving in Cleveland, and you can see it in the replay that he's slow to get up. And he was talking about this injury, and these players, they want to play through it. And for him, this sort of thing where early on in his career, his shoulder popped out. Shoulder dislocated. Well, if that happens once, that's more likely to happen in the future. So that's a situation where he wanted to play through it and he was trying to play through it. And, the Royals and his teammates, were like, hey, this is not, good for you anymore. You really should have this surgery. Like it's okay. We understand. Like, but I think, he and I was there listening to him, and it was just sort of, what baseball players go through every day if they're putting their body on the line. You think of like NFL players as putting their body on the line, but baseball players, guess what they're doing? It's a 6:40 game. They're there at 3:00 outside doing drills, working on stuff, right? Then, they're there for a couple of hours doing, pregame stuff, working outside, doing drills, like I said, stretching, whatnot, preparing for the game. Then you have the game. The game could be 2-3 hours long where they have to do, really, really intense, twitchy movements, right? And then once you're done, you got to take care of your body after the game and make sure that all of the things that happen. And, I don't know if you've ever been like if you swung a bat and you've hit a foul ball off your foot. If you haven't done that recently, I'm not going to say,
Take a
the
hammer.
Rex Rubler thing, take a hammer, but like that hurts. Okay. That hurts. And diving on the ground, like you're full laying out, you think of these, super Bobby, fully extended. That hurts when you land. It hurts. And these players do it all the time. They go from 0 to 100%, and they are, all of just these little things like, oh, well, they hurt something. Well, of course they're going to hurt something. Like, it's not like they get hit by a pitch and that just disappears. Like if you got hit by a pitch, you'd be monitoring that bruise for 2 weeks, and they could get hit in the same space the next day. Like so. I think that all of that is to say that there are, especially for pitchers, where little things in their, in their leg or the back or whatever may cause them to overcompensate elsewhere. And then, it's a whole kinetic chain. And if you're trying to overcompensate elsewhere, then, your arm may have, be more under strain. And there's all sorts of, of things there. And like earlier on in the year, Noah Cameron, his back hurt.
Yeah.
Right. Not his arm. It was his back. And like, because it's a whole kinetic chain. So that's just a lot of rambling to say, like, I was listening to that, to Jonathan talk about that, and it was like, like these players go through a lot all the time, and we don't really know what's, a lot of times if they're going through a rough stretch, maybe it's because of a nagging thing that's not enough for them to get, taken out of the game. But they need Bobby to play, so they're not going to take Bobby out, if his knee twinges, unless it's really impacting something. So,
yeah. All right. Well,
that
folks,
sounds like Matt agrees with me. That's my takeaway.
I think that's a good way to look at it. All right, fellas, anything to add before we move on to reviews this evening?
I just want to highlight real quick one thing I wrote about in the recap for today's game, that Noah Cameron, you don't even have to take away the bad stretch for him, is top 50 among MLB starters in KBIB and in ERA. Top 50. That's nearly ace. That's if you're top 30, I mean, that's basically ace level. That you're one of the 30 best starters. You would be a number one starter on a team. I just, that's with the bad stretch too, because so often when we do this, we're like, well, if you take away the bad stretch, and I can certainly give you the numbers from the bad stretch and how good those are, but that's what really stands out to me is Noah Cameron has really stepped up for this team. We were ready to send him to the minors. If it had been up to us and nobody had gotten hurt, maybe even if it wasn't up to us, if nobody had gotten hurt, he'd have been sent to the minors for the struggles he was having when Kolek came up. But people did get hurt, so he stuck around, and he has been lights out. He has been fantastic. And I just want to point out, like, if the Royals, if they do find the miracle, get back close to 500, get back in this playoff race, it's going to be not just because Chris Bubich and Cole Reagans came back and looked like themselves, not just because Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo stuck around and looked like themselves, not just because these guys have start to find a rhythm in the hitting. It's going to be because Noah Cameron has become the part of this rotation. These become one of the 3 left-handed aces on this team, and I don't know if he could keep it up. I that's why I look at that KBIB. That KBIB is very predictive, and I feel good. I feel so much better about him now than I did at any point last year. So I am, and that's I guess the thing I really want to stab home for anyone listening is Noah Cameron isn't just back to being who he was last year. He is pitching better than he was last year. And we were worried about that arm slot change. One of the things I talked about when he made the arm slot change was, I don't know if it was intentional or not, it's stuck, was, the slider is not working as well. The fastball is much better. And one of the concerns a lot of people had with him was how good his fastball was. Well, the fastball is still better, but now the breaking stuff for the off-speed stuff is working again. So I'm very excited. I'm so glad now that the Royals didn't trade Noah Cameron in the offseason for Brendan Donovan, and that they've still got him in the rotation, because if this is the Noah Cameron that we're going to have for the rest of his rookie deal, or maybe even further, that's a huge benefit to the Royals.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, anything else to add, man? No? All right. That's just fine by me. All right, folks, let's go ahead and roll into today's Royals reviews. Matt, since you are a guest, would you please start us off?
Sure. I've been, we're rewatching The Lord of the Rings right now, and haven't done it in a while. It's such a great, set of movies. I think that it's also unique in that it's like approachable if you're not a fantasy fan. And so if you're one of the very few people who haven't seen The Lord of the Rings, it's worth a watch. And, I think it's part of the reason why people feel so nostalgic about them and so happy about them is like, it was sort of feels like the perfect storm of, they filmed all 3 movies at once. It was, before the age of like Twitter and social media, so that they had sort of, space to do it. And did have fan feedback. It was, older, with community message boards and, fan clubs and stuff like that. But like, everybody was really pulling together and all creatively firing on all cylinders, and they had the time and space and the money to do that before all of the sort of franchisee sequel sort of thing. Like they were able to do it right, and in a way that it wasn't just the Lord of the Rings as intellectual property, quote unquote. So I think that every time you rewatch it, you see different things, you pay attention to different things, and repeatedly, but especially now, happy that it exists in the way that it does, because you couldn't do it today. You couldn't do it today.
The Hobbit
No.
proves that.
Yeah, that it does. Jeremy, you got a review today?
I just want to piggyback on Matt real quick and say, I went to see The Lord of the Rings in theaters when it came out. I was not a fantasy fan my family dragged me to the movie. I remember the Royals were playing the Red Sox. Pedro Martinez was on the mound, and I wanted to watch that game. I didn't want to go watch some dumb fantasy movie. I was a sci-fi kid. Forget this fantasy stuff. And Lord of the Rings changed my whole life. I became a fantasy fan after watching those movies. So you're dead on, Matt, that those movies are very approachable for someone who doesn't like or doesn't know that they like fantasy. It's just terrific stuff. But I'm going to, speaking of science fiction, my review this week is going to be on the Apple TV series Murderbot, which is based on the book series The Murderbot Diaries. Watched that with my family over the last week. It is an oddball kind of thing, but just like almost everything Apple does, it works, baby. Just tremendous amount of fun. It's a little gory for me, but with a name like Murderbot, you probably should expect that there's probably going to be some gore involved. It's kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the cyberpunk, but it's not cyberpunk. It's not a utopia, a dystopian future kind of thing. Where this guy, this android kind of thing is created from cloned human tissue, and is a security bot, and he hacks his governor module and becomes kind of a free agent, and watches lots and lots of bad TV in his brain when he's supposed to be doing security, and shenanigans ensue. It's a lot of fun. It's been renewed for a second season. My family has read the books. I'm planning to. I haven't gotten to them yet, but I enjoyed it immensely. Add it as another reason that you should just go ahead and get yourself an Apple TV subscription so you don't have to complain when the Royals are on Friday Night Baseball.
Yeah, Apple TV is worth it.
I was gonna ask if you had read the books because your review sounded like someone who hadn't read the books, and that's certainly not bad. But the books are amazing. I would read an infinite number of Murderbot books, truly infinite number. Sort of like I would also watch an infinite number of Knives Out movies.
Yes.
Infinite number of Murderbot books. They are so good. I read, it was a couple of years ago over, I usually take the week off between like Christmas and New Year's. And that's my favorite week of the year because I don't do anything, like get the family stuff. They're just nothing. Just, I get to be like, a college kid on break. And I had all these plans for like what I was going to do, what I was going to play. And what I did is I ended up reading all of the Murderbot books that were out at that point, and it was lovely. Highly recommend it. I like the series. You're right, it's an oddball series, but it sort of makes more sense if you read the books. It's also half an hour long, which is like weird. It's weird in a lot of ways, but it does as good as it can with the source material for sure.
Yeah, my one complaint about the show was that I felt watching these 30-minute episodes that the moment I'd finally settled into an episode and I was really ready to just let it wash over me, it was over. But my family has the audiobooks, the graphic audio books, so that's like a full voice cast, sound effects, all that stuff. They say they're amazing. So that it's on my list. I'm currently still working my way through the Throne of Glass series, but I that might be my next stop is the Murderbot Diaries.
There you go. I'm also going to review a book today. It's called Episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. It is a horror novel that is written in a found footage style. I know that might sound weird in a book, but it certainly worked. So it's like a collection of tape transcripts, journals, correspondence, and what it all centers around. It's this ghost hunting reality TV show, and they're investigating a mansion where things happened back in the 70s. It's been abandoned since then, and it starts out as like a psychological horror, more of a thing, and then it just ends up in Lovecraft, just straight out of Lovecraft stuff. So it has great pacing. I enjoyed the unique storytelling style. This is one of those books where like you go and look it up on Goodreads. I made sure that I got everything in the synopsis from Goodreads, and it's got a 3.5 stars on Goodreads. Not great. It's certainly not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. I absolutely loved this book. So if this is something you're into, you like reading a book in one sitting because you can't go to sleep, Episode 13 is a good way to go.
Have you read World War Z, Jacob?
I have read and listened to the audiobook. The audiobook is excellent for World War Z.
The multi-reader version.
Yeah. Yeah, the full cast is awesome. Also, shout out to the Harry Potter books. Now all the full cast Harry Potter books are available on Audible, so I'm going to start listening to those eventually. Probably not tonight, though. Alrighty, folks.
I ever since I read the 7th Harry Potter book, I just have no interest in any of it anymore.
Valid. Alrighty, folks, we're gonna go ahead and get on out of here. But before we do, a big thank you to Matthew LaMar for joining us this evening. Make sure you check out his work and Jeremy's work up on RoyalsReview.com, along with the rest of the team over there. But if you want to follow along with us or subscribe, make sure you do wherever you're listening to us at. We're available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whole shebang. That Spotify comment section is popping off as always. Thank you to Jeremy for keeping that lively over there. And I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Yeah, I got nothing off the top of my head. Sorry about that, folks. But I'm Jac Caglianone.
That's the closest I could come to Army terminology. Somebody asked for that after the sea terminology, nautical terminology.
I don't know what the next frontier is. Question mark. You see what I did there, Jeremy? What's the next frontier, huh? But we can get on out of here. Feed the feed, baby. I'm Jacob Milham. There, Jeremy Greco. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, go Royals.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.